My name is Grant Cahall, and I tend to go between the morning and after or later morning service. And I've lived in Mount Orb my whole life, and I've been married almost 38 years now with Holly. So what happened to me and give me my giant to defeat was a bicycle accident that I was involved in. I used to ride a bicycle for exercise, and the next thing I know, I'm waking up in the hospital. And I had been in coma for a week, and I look over and there's a childhood friend of mine who was praying, and he was a minister and a chaplain in the Army. So of course I go, what's going on? And it had been that I'd been hit by this, and I slowly, started to come out of that, and my memory of the whole year before was gone. I don't remember the accident or the months leading up to it. So I start to go back to work. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in the hospital again, and I had my first seizure. I had been at a factory selling some of my product, and they took care of me, got me to the hospital. So seizures started happening. Eventually it got to the point where I couldn't have my business anymore. I had to close them down, and that was harsh there. Then I'm having seizures every 4 to 6 weeks, and they would be debilitating. Maybe 2 or 3 days I would be kind of useless in a way, and had to recover from that. And then I'd have 2-3 weeks of normality, and then they would come again. So I guess what started putting doubts in my mind, and fear and maybe anger, was at the sense that I was having life taken away from me. There's nothing I could do. I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't go anymore. I had to stay at home practically all the time. Holly's working and during the day. So my father at that time was still alive, and he would take me places, and that would help. And I could get things done to help the household. But then he died, and again I was kind of trapped, as it were. Every time I have a seizure, I think it again would do something to my brain, as it were. And for the 14 years that I had them, it all was a fog to me. I couldn't recall things. I recall things from the past, but maybe what I did that day, I don't remember that well, or things I needed to do, and I started to have to work on planning my day out and making notes to myself to remember to do things. So I would have seizures. I almost ran out into the highway once, and luckily I tripped and fell to the ground just before I got into the road. There's a couple of other instances that bad things could have happened because of the seizure, and that's when I was having the Grand Mal. They finally got it down to the Pettit Mall seizures, and it was just where I would just sort of stare at you, and Holly would know I was having one, and they would just put me to bed and give me a medication that sort of stopped it all. So, as I was saying, I just felt like my life was being taken away from me, and I couldn't do anything. And especially when I lost my licenses, I couldn't, out here in the country, you can't go anywhere unless someone can help you. So I got depressed, and would have anger at times, So many people have things that they feel like, why did this happen to me? And I would get very emotional at times. That kind of changed my personality. And at times when it got really bad, I would just sit and sob for a while. And that was hard to deal with too. And things would make me tear up at other times. Luckily, I was told that people can they might become mean. Luckily, that didn't happen with me. It was sort of the opposite, which I was grateful for. But I had, Holly was there for me. My two sons, they had to grow up with this, but they were there for me, and I would have guilt, not being there for them all the time. But our family would stay together, and that was such a good thing. I wasn't what I was before. People would look at me and they'd say, well, you look fine. But it wasn't a physical injury. It was the brain, my mental injury, the traumatic brain injury. And they wouldn't see me when the seizure came. So I would doubt, when will this ever end? Will it be the rest of my life? Can I deal with that for the rest of my life? And I was a person that would never ever think of killing themselves, but suicide sometimes would creep in my mind. That's a huge doubt in yourself, on what you think of yourself and what life can be. I never would talk to anybody about those kind of thoughts. I didn't want to. With these doubts and the experiences I was having, I would turn to God, help me to persevere, as it were. And as I said, my doctor, who is a very, very highly regarded neurologist, he would try to keep me positive at all times, and we'll do this and we'll do that, and we'll try to get there. And again, we tried as much as we could to remain positive. And then one time for a visit, he said, well, we have a new medication that's come out, and it's been around for a while, and it's shown to be effective, but they've just let it be approved here in the United States. Would you want to try it? And I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. He said, it either works or it makes you so depressed that you hate it. You don't want it. So I thought, okay, I'm having troubles now, so let's try this. And almost immediately it worked. I went 6 months without a seizure and started to defeat that giant a bit. And then I had one. I go back to him. He says, you went 6 months, with this look on his face of, incredulity. So let's up the dose a bit. And I haven't had one since. And so I felt like, okay, that's been defeated, and I need to move on and change in different ways. So I got my license back. I could start to go around, do things, and I started to substitute teach at school, which gave me a chance to get out, be with people, feel like I'm doing something. I didn't know what that something may be, and this is something I always thought. Maybe some way this whole thing, I'm helping someone. I may never know it. May know who it was, but I thought God might have done this to let me give that chance to touch someone if I could, and be his conduit to that person. So the Lord sustained us, our whole family, not just me. I was lucky that Holly stayed by my side. Many times the spouse leaves. They don't want to deal with it, I've been told. But she was there. And that was a blessing. My family was there, and my friends were there, and I feel like this was all God's doing as well.